Hi everybody, it's Mr. Woz and welcome to a special episode of Wozley Science. In this episode, I'm going to have you take notes on how to take notes. Well, specifically in a flipped classroom model or in the virtual world. Now, I've been running a flipped classroom model since 2014, so at the point of making this video, I've been doing it for 6 years. And I find it to be very effective for students because it allows us to take the material into a deeper level. And what I mean by that is instead of me lecturing in the classroom and you frantically writing information down and not really knowing what it is you're writing, or you're really tired because it's like 7:30 in the morning, you get some time to watch the video in a setting that works for you. Maybe it's a time of day that you are better at learning. Maybe you're more relaxed. Maybe you got to pace yourself a little bit more, and you could take those notes at a slower pace, not feel pressured, and then on top of that, if there's material that while it's going on in the video you're confused on, you can listen to it again, because sometimes it helps to hear something a second time or even a third time. And so then in the classroom, we get to take this material to the next level. So with labs, projects, and activities, we can take the material that you learned from the videos as our foundation and then build our tower with each unit that we go. So get ready to take some notes. I'm taking notes. Okay, so you're gonna start watching a video and you're gonna be taking notes. Before you jump right into it, you need to be prepared. So what does that look like? Well, ask yourself this. Are you gonna do this paper-based, or are you going to do this digital? I recommend whatever it is you choose it at the beginning of the year and do your best to try to stick to the plan. Really think what's going to work better for you. If you're more tactile and you think that, working with colored pencils or highlighters and, pages and having an organized notebook is just going to be better for you, then do that. If you have really bad handwriting and you're just tech savvy and you feel like you can handle things like Google Drawing or maybe Photoshop or something like that, and you can organize your notes on like a Google Doc, then I would recommend doing your notes digital. Or if you think you're somebody that might lose things too, it's nice to have it digital, because as long as it's in the Google Drive, you're not going to lose it, where you could lose your notebook one day leaving it somewhere. So the next thing is you got to take your time. So if there's a video that's 20 minutes on YouTube, you got to plan for the video to take you at least 40 minutes to complete. So if it's the night before and the video's due and you're like, oh, it's only going to take me 20 minutes. Well, not exactly. To effectively take notes, it's going to take longer than that. So you have to plan accordingly. Generally, with my class, I will give you about a week to watch a video that could range from about 20 to 30 minutes. So you can pace yourself and just watch 5 minutes of the video like once a day if you want to. Or if there's a certain day of the week where your schedule is a little bit more open, you can plan to watch the video that day. Next, you need a place to keep your notes. If you're going to use a notebook, get a nice notebook with lots of pages. I honestly think that blank pages work better than lined paper. And I'll kind of get to that later, but basically I think things like concept maps and drawing diagrams, things like that just work a little bit better on blank paper than in lined paper. Lined paper can sometimes restrict you to what it is you're trying to do. If you're going to go digital, you need to have a folder. So make a folder on Google Docs, a folder on the drive that can help keep you organized. And then that way you can name each Google Doc something specific that goes with the video. And so another piece that I find to be very effective is to write the topics down, one topic per page. Now, what I mean by this is usually at the beginning of my videos, I will address the topics that are going to occur in the video. So if there's 6 topics, get 6 pages write that topic, write one topic per page on the top of the page, and so then you have your 6 pages ready to go. And so not only are you opening the ability to have 1 page of notes for each topic, but you're also kind of restricting yourself so you don't go too crazy in one topic versus another topic. Alright guys, so for this section you need a blank piece of paper. You want to get a blank piece of paper and some colored pencils and maybe like some black pens. That probably would be the best case, because what we're going to do right now is we're going to make a concept map. So let's give this a shot here. So in the middle of your paper you want to write taking notes in a flipped classroom. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give you 4 rules to taking notes in a flipped classroom setting. So on each corner of this paper, that is what our 4 rules are going to live. So rule 1 is to value diagrams in any sort of subject, especially science, because when we put a diagram on our videos and we're talking about the diagram, it helps so much to draw the diagram. Take some time, take some colored pencils out and draw it. Let's say you're really bad at drawing and you're doing these notes digital. What you then can do is you can take the image. If some teachers, I know I will do this, I will post the PowerPoint so you can take that image and literally Control-C it and then Control-V it in either Adobe Photoshop or Google Classroom. And the reason why that's really helpful is you can add color to that diagram if you need to on Photoshop, but you can also then take text boxes and write notes around the diagram so the diagram becomes your own. You have ownership on it in that you've created something with it. And when you draw the diagram, it actually even does a better job at this because you spent some investment time with the diagram. It didn't feel like a drag. It didn't feel like it was a ton of work. Like sometimes if you're doing a really good job with it, you can get lost in it. And that investment of time helps you remember and understand and grasp what the diagram is showing. And then if you add text boxes or speech balloons or something like that around the diagram, so when I'm giving you notes and I'm talking about a diagram, listen to the things I'm saying about the diagram and write those things down around the diagram. And sometimes I recommend taking the entire page on the diagram. Have the whole page that you're doing a topic of be stemmed around that diagram, because you're just going to see that diagram a bunch of times. You might see it on the assessment. So one of the biggest things I recommend, I think this is so helpful, the students that are most successful in my flipped classroom setting are the ones that will listen first and then take notes. So they will technically watch the video twice. They will listen to it once through, all the way through, not write anything down, but just listen to it and watch it. And the reason why that's so important is if you watch the video in one sitting and take no notes, you then know ahead of time the key parts. And when you know the key parts ahead of time, it will help build anticipation. Anticipation is one of the most powerful things that your brain can do, because when your brain can anticipate something happening, it can make you just on your A game. If you do any sports at all, you're an athlete, you know that when your coach is saying you need to play smart, that means if you know your opponent's going to go left and you can move in that direction, you have such an advantage because you anticipated the fact that they were going to go that direction. This works when you're playing chess. If you're playing somebody in chess and you know the moves that they're about to make and you can anticipate what they're going to do, that means you can get the leg up on things. It's the same thing with taking notes. When you're taking notes, if you can anticipate what diagrams I'm going to spend a lot of time on, you know that you can invest that longer time in than maybe something in the beginning of the video that like seems really interested, but that's not centralized around the main points of the video itself. And so it helps your brain prepare itself for what it really needs to spend the most time on, and what things are most important, and what things are very interesting but not necessarily a thing that you need to write down a lot about. So yeah, when you build the anticipation, it helps plan out your notes. So listen first, notes second. Rule 3, color. Okay, I cannot emphasize this enough. And my point that I always say with this is I want you to think about any memory that you have. Maybe, a dog, a puppy you got, and you remember that moment that you saw the puppy for the first time. Maybe that moment where, you got to go to your favorite restaurant for your birthday. A moment your little brother or sister got hurt and you were really worried. Like, I want you to think about every single memory that you have and tell me this. Was it in black and white? No, it probably wasn't, was it? So why are your notes in black and white? Why do you expect to remember your notes that are in black and white if none of your memories that you do a really good job on remembering and that they never forget, they're not in black and white, they're in color. So make your notes in color. So what I'm going to do for you right now is I'm going to give you some colors that you could use for your notes. So this is what I recommend doing. I recommend writing your notes with a pen or pencil with one color, but then behind the certain words you want, what you should do is take a colored pencil and shade behind it. So the word will have like almost a backdrop. That will help make the word pop out on your notes. And if you if you train your brain to use certain colors for certain things, that will help store the information, and that will help remember the information for a really long time. So it's not only using color on the diagrams, but it's also using color when organizing the different points of your notes. So for example, all the topics that you wrote on the top of the pages, like I was telling you before, put them in purple. Okay, so let's have our topics be purple. Anytime that you're doing patterns, which is actually going to be the fourth section of this concept map, you can have your patterns be blue. So if you don't know what patterns are right now, don't worry, you will in a second. Any questions you have during your notes. So maybe there's some questions you have you want to bring to the table the next time you see me in class, or some questions you might want to talk about your peers. You can put them in red because that was like a moment that you had to stop. And so that helps your brain trigger that. Anything that's super important, you can make orange so that it pops out on the page. And then any vocabulary words, you can have green. So that way, all the different kinds of things that you would see in notes start to become different colors, and that helps your brain categorize the different elements of your notes. And so the last section is patterns. So what do I mean by a pattern? Patterns are very, very important in science note-taking, but they're honestly also important in history note-taking, and I could even make the argument for English and math. So what are they? A pattern is like a trend or relationship. And so the typical framework I like to see my students structure their trend or relationship is called as the IV either increases or decreases, then the DV either increases or decreases. So let's go back and think what's an IV? That's the independent variable. And the independent variable is the thing that you change. And if we're in English class or history class, it is the cause, right? The dependent variable, or the DV, is the part that you measure. It's the data. So in history or English, it's the effect, right? I'm sure you have heard of cause and effect. Like in history class, you often talk about on timeline, you say, this happened, which led to this. It's the same thing with science. We often have independent variables because we will manipulate one thing and then we observe what happens when we made that change. And so then we measure it. So the piece that we measure is the dependent variable, and the thing that we change or control, it's the cause, that or manipulate, yes, that's the independent variable. And trends are extremely important when you're taking notes. Now, when you're watching my videos, I'm not going to say, okay guys, stop the press, here's a trend, write this trend down. I might say that sometimes and you'll get lucky. But other times, you're going to have to listen, color a diagram, pause, and go, wait a minute. This sounds like a trend. As the age of a star increases and its elemental composition goes from helium to lithium to beryllium to carbon, its size increases, and then it leads to more things, leads itself closer to death. So, well, at this point, this is my 4 rules with taking very effective notes. I hope that you all benefited from this, and I can't wait to see your notes this year. Now, if you think that you created some really great notes that we can use for examples in the classroom as like ways to be a good role model and say these are the kinds of notes that I've taken, you can even earn yourself some bonus points at the beginning of the year. All right, everybody, that's all I got for you. I hope you got a lot out of this, and take care.